Welcome to the Windy Ridge Ranch in northeastern Oregon. We're going elk hunting.
Welcome to the director commentary for the 2008 elk hunting video. I'm Brent. I'm the guy who was out in the field with Bob shooting. Bob's a good friend of mine. We graduated high school together. We have this little Dokken thing going on since we grew up in the air metal era, so I thought I'd throw a bunch in there.
But first, we got to make sure that bow is tuned in.
And Bob is a really good bow hunter, a good shot, and he really knows the animals. And so I agreed to travel 500 miles to his place to watch him
Close enough.
try to knock off a bull here. And I was forced to not disclose where we were because Bob and his buddies don't want a bunch of hunters coming in from out of the area and messing their stuff up, because as you'll see, this place is loaded with elk. Bob's pretty good at building his own custom tools, including his box here. But also, since then he's created basically a travel trailer that he pulls behind his four-wheeler and sets himself up pretty comfortably. Maybe we'll get another show here in the future. This was some long driving sequences. I'd kind of just started shooting at this point, and so I would climb up on the hill and make him drive back and forth and shoot it from a distance and up close and medium. And I thought with all this footage and the little Dokken thing going on, I'd use this to torture him for, I don't know, 5 minutes or so. Well, 2 minutes, but that's a long time in film time. Beautiful country here in Blankety-Blankistan. And he's coming up on the final hill here before we start his narration, and you're going to find that Bob does a really good job, keeps it very interesting. It's a combination of a lot of humor with a guy who clearly knows the ins and outs of elk hunting, including the animals, the gear, the terrain, the environmental conditions, the whole thing. He's going to explain it to you.
You got to see them before they see you.
And he's setting up a great joke right here.
You like to take advantage of some of these high spots, even before we get to the really good stuff, just to make sure. Because of this kind of hunting, actually spent the extra money a couple of years ago, got myself some Zeiss glasses. Well worth it.
If you've never looked through a pair of Zeiss binoculars and you've seen through, 40 or $50 Bushnells, it's hard to explain the difference, but it really is worth the money if you're going to be serious about hunting or anything where you need to see accurately at a range.
To, places that I begin to see elk, probably going to have to get my camo on here pretty quick. I think Jim Horn said it best. He said elk make a living out of staying alive. They can see better than us, hear better, and they can smell better. But we got opposable thumbs. Makes it even.
That's hilarious. I love that take that he does.
One of the things we know is that elk see black and white, which means they don't see color, but they can see movement a whole lot better. It is possible for a guy to come out here in a blaze orange t-shirt and blaze orange pants, sit perfectly still, and elk will walk right by him. My thought is, the better your camouflage, the more you blend in, the more movement you can make without them seeing you. Some of the favorite camo that I've seen is this stuff right here. It's 3D camo. It's light mesh. Air blows through it. You put it on over the top of anything. Makes a quick change easy. This hat, I just like it because it looks cool.
Another great joke by Bob there in the moment.
From here on in, we don't rev the engines. We move as quiet as we can. Whenever possible, we stick to the low country where we can't be seen very well. We don't want to be silhouetted. These elk will spot our silhouettes from half a mile away. We have to close the distance. We're archery hunters. We got to get within 50 yards or it's no deal for us. All right, we've spotted some elk. There's about 6 or 8 that we've spotted from about 1,500 yards out. They're just up over this next little rise. When we top out there, should put us about 400 yards from them. We don't want to waste a lot of time checking out a bunch of cows. So we need to get up over there, see if there's a bull with the bunch. If we spot the bull, we're going to back off. We're going to figure out how best to approach him. In the afternoons up here, the wind gets a little squirrely. Elk hunting is 90% luck, 10% skill. We just need to make sure we do our best on our 10%.
Remember that 90-10 thing, because it's going to come in handy later.
We're now within about
So at this point, we've seen our first elk, and Bob's trying to come up with a way to get close to him. One thing you're going to notice, there's a lot of scratching sound, and that's because I used, for the first time, a wireless lapel mic, and when he put that 3D camo on, I think it was kind of fluttering and smacking the microphone, but I think it still works, and I cut a lot of the really annoying scratches out of the audio. And there's the bull.
He looks like a decent 6-point.
And you'll notice here and in other shots, the waving you're seeing on the screen is the heat. It was really brutally hot here, and it was a dry heat, but still
Oh, he's beautiful.
very hot.
Like he's no Boone and Crockett. But if I got him, he'd be my favorite bull I got this year.
Another great one-liner.
Yeah, he might be a big 4-point. Of course, he's got pretty big spread on the top. He's got cows in front of him. Well, it's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We've got another 4 hours of hunting light left. And the question is, do we go after him now? Or do we wait, follow him, watch where he lays down, and try to get to him tomorrow morning? Elk do things for a reason. They move down at night, and they move up in the morning. And the reason is because of the thermals. The thermals rise during the day, so they feel good about walking into the wind. So the wind's settling at night when it's cold. They like to walk up at that time because once again they get to walk into the wind. The problem with this time period of 2 o'clock is that things begin to get a little unstable. So the wind starts to swirl. If we're going to go after this bull, we need to back out of here, go out and around, take us probably half a mile, 3/4 of a mile, get around up that draw from him. If we can catch those cows coming to us, get close enough to his cows, we can either use the old hyper hot, or if you really want to have some fun, throw in a bugle when you get within about 50 yards of his cows.
There was a spot where the scratching took the audio away.
Even with these swirling winds, we've decided that maybe we can get up around top of this hill.
And Bob's being
come
a
back
little
around,
more
loop
aggressive,
around,
I think,
see
than
if
he
things
would have
about
been had I not been there.
Might get a little closer,
I think
be able to check out whether or not,
if I wasn't there, he probably would have left that bull alone because of the
we can
wind.
get close enough.
but there was a window of opportunity
It's their feet
having the
through that
camera
crop.
there, and he wanted to take advantage of
gonna
that,
be
so
great.
we were willing to take the chance.
Hunting elk this time of year.
Another great joke,
It's kind of like going to a college bar at 10:30 on a Saturday
and it's
night.
true.
Every guy there's got one of two things on his mind. One's sex, one's fighting. They don't care which. Let's go get elk.
I gotta take this guy halibut fishing one of these days. And here I set up
Sagebrush.
a two-part shot where he walks into the camera, then walks away from it. Little fun things to throw into a show.
About 300 more yards. We've covered about a half a mile.
Really beautiful country,
Ridge.
and fortunately we had just no shortage of animals during this entire trip.
They're now downhill from us by about 200 yards. They're about 50 yards ahead of us. That brush patch you can see down there, that pile of brush coming down, the biggest clump of brush. Cow elk just went down the bottom of that. What we expect, if you look back a little bit to your left, you'll see kind of those game trails.
And I'm just trying to follow with the camera what he's saying to keep in sync with the shot. And this was the first time me and him had done a filming project like this together, so I thought it turned out pretty well.
Fairly young bull.
And I was woefully unprepared, but that was just a lack of experience.
Give him a little hyper hot cow.
Of course, this was back in 2008, and I'm talking now in 2020, so 12 years back. And I had really just started in the last few years filming these things. And Bob is the best personality I've had the opportunity to film so far. And I say film, but it's digital video. And there's the cow down in the bottom there.
If you follow this line of brush to the right, as you go up, it's going to turn a little bit to the left. That's a place we like to call the wallows up there. That's where these elk are heading. Unless they get bumped, then they'll take a right.
And again, me trying to kind of stay with what he's going to talk about. Sometimes it's just not feasible to discuss, the shot you're doing in front. A lot of what he's doing is off the cuff, but he's throwing out accurate information about his understanding of the area and the animals.
Says my 7-power Leica rangefinder.
Of course, he has to brag about his electronics. And there's the head of the cow elk,
That bull should be sniffing along any minute.
enjoying some greens down in the draw.
If these elk head up to the wallows, we're going to back out of here this afternoon, and we're going to be in here at first light tomorrow morning. That way we'll be able to walk up the draw.
So at this point, see, I think Bob is already knowing that based on the time of day and the wind change, which happens around this time, that we're probably going to have to come back in here. So the best we could almost do is just not spook them.
So I'm going to see if we can't sweet talk him up the hill a little bit. Got a little rise right in front of us, so it should keep us nicely out of sight. Better get an arrow ready. A lot of guys don't like to hunt by themselves because somebody's got a call while somebody shoots. I've been pretty lucky. And the last 4 bulls I've called in myself. And this is how it starts.
And finally, that cow hears on the 4th call, maybe the 3rd call,
Is
got her
when you
attention.
do not want to move. Yeah, but she's scanning that hillside, wondering
this is the time as a bow hunter that is critical, that you have to get within 40 or so yards of them to get a shot, which is going to mean that there's a lot of times when you're going to be vulnerable to them detecting you. And really hiding behind sagebrush and being still and knowing your wind is really critical.
It's a nice combination of a relaxed mom and a calf.
So Bob's talking about the different calls he's making. So basically, he's saying that there's a calf and a mom talking to her calf, and then there's a cow elk saying that she's an estrus, which is the one you want to use to actually bring the bull within shooting range.
So I like to call a few times. If I get a response, great. Otherwise, just need to change the setup some. See how that cow put her head back down and start eating? That's a good sign. Everybody's nice and relaxed. That bull could show up at any minute.
So we're hoping that the bull is coming to the cow calling, and having what he believes is the lead cow down there feeding is a good sign, because it means the herd is not alerted, they're not afraid, they're comfortable, and that is the right environment to get that bull to come out. We're just trying to coax him out, and we don't really know exactly where he is at this point. So after a little bit here, we're gonna try to move a little bit, and you'll see what happens there here in about a minute.
Now that's about all the calling I'm going to do. I'm going to wait here for about the next 45 minutes. This 45 minutes is how long it takes a bull to walk 3 steps at a time, about 150 to 200 yards. It's the afternoon. Nobody's in a hurry.
Okay, now we're trying to get a little closer down into the draw. Again, we know, being that it's the afternoon, that the wind will start changing direction, and that could likely blow our location. And she caught us. This footage was shot on a Sony HVR A1U that was brand new in about 2005. Really good camera. It was a digital tape recording type camera. Regular definition though, and you had to download the tapes in real time after you'd use them, 60-minute tapes. Now I use digital mini SD cards on 3 Sony cameras that I can use. And I actually do my narration into the microphone of my Sony.
It's the swirling wind around here. She may have caught the smell of us. I know she didn't hear us. I know she couldn't see.
I'm trying to get the type for you
We got
here.
a bull elk around here. We're going to back off for this afternoon.
As Bob is
We're going to come back tomorrow
a
morning.
PJ 540.
First thing.
Has a really
we're
good
gonna
surround
get an
mic
elk.
input, and it has a gyro stabilized head. So
Or why that
yeah, so we got busted here basically with our wind, but she hasn't seen us, so she's not freaked out.
I'm sure that bull would be right behind her.
It sounds like she was alone.
Over the ridge.
So we haven't done any real damage as far as our chances for tomorrow.
Look, there's no moon
Now
on
coming
this
up here, you're going to see
last half an hour dark,
a snake.
which means those elk
It's a prairie
are
rattlesnake.
farther.
And
Draw.
here we are. We're walking through the sagebrush, and it sounds like a flat tire.
We're gonna get
And it was out of place, and all of a sudden, I realized Bob knew right away what it was. I hadn't heard it before, so he points it out to me. So I get, I'm like 6-8 feet away,
poisonous prairie rattlesnake.
and I have the camera zoomed in on it on the bottom right of the screen here. And so I'm watching it, and he's kind of taunting it.
Now, we're pretty lucky here in this
And the snake ends up starting to come on the ground a little bit towards me, and because I had it zoomed in, and that's my field of vision was this small, it started moving, and I did what I felt I needed to do, which was jump and run about 50 yards. I think I did the 40 in 3.8. I think, Bob, we got a good chuckle out of that. Didn't have that on video, just the camera flopping around. I didn't think you needed to see that, but yeah, scared the crap out of me. Here's another a window that I felt I could throw some Dokken in to taunt him. This is Dream Warriors, of course, the theme song of Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors. This one's for you, Bob, as are the rest of them. So this morning, Bob's going to introduce his then-girlfriend. So here's the introduction shot. We're back on the plane. That next morning, it's barely light. And here's where I overlaid Bob talking, sitting on his four-wheeler with the two walking. I thought it was a better view,
today with us,
a better looking shot to expose the information that we were looking for. Nobody says you have to keep the audio and the video together.
Quarter to a half mile short of a piece of country that elk a lot of times hang up at night. We're going to stay up there. We're going to see if we can't hear some bulls bugle at us. And then when the winds get right, about 10:30 this morning, we're going to put the sneak on those elk we saw last night. Hey, let's go get elk. We'll do some calls.
So basically, Bob has another spot that's far enough away from where we really wanted to go back to those other ones that we're going to give it a shot. And we ended up spending a good couple hours in here, and we got nothing. And then we make our way back over where we left them the night before.
Now, I like to use the bugle as a locator, not as a mechanism to call them in. Right now, we're not hearing a response. But sometimes it takes them a little while to get out of bed and answer the call.
I really like the way Bob explains it, the theories and the things that drive his decision making. He's basically broken down to engineering basics.
We shot an elk right up here. So we were sitting here listening to what I like to call the elk birds, because they sound a little bit like a calf elk going off. Look, we've been here for about a half hour. I'm not sure. We're not getting any indication that
Yeah, there was nothing
anything's
there.
interesting
Nothing.
coming down
Not
the hill.
a zip zilch.
But if you look over here, just a little bit to our to the east of us here, we're going to climb up on that little ridge top right there. It's just 75 yards as the crow flies. We're going to sit up on top of there, and we're going to start glassing down below any of the elk that are moving up.
And when you see that light
to be
change
able to
like
see
that,
them
it's still
crossing
a
over some
lot
of these
darker
ridge
than it
tops.
looks on camera.
We're gonna
And
sit
when
up
you
there
get
and
those
glass
large
for a couple
contrasts, it has to go one way or the other, light or dark, and then it'll change
below us.
as you move into a darker spot, and it gives it a chance for the lens to open up and bring in more light without washing out. That's why that happens. So it just shows you that it's still a little early. So now we're back close to where we can try to spot the ones we saw yesterday.
Down there. I think we are. And we're about 981 yards away from where we saw her last night. Got to be careful about the wind drift down in there. We could see a little better if we moved over here, but I'm afraid that puts us.
Basically what Bob's doing is he has an idea of where he thinks they bedded down. He's trying to find them without getting alerted, and voila, there they are.
And all of a sudden, right out of this draw below us, about 100 yards yards away from where we saw that cow yesterday. We see that herd of elk. It's 8 o'clock. The wind, you can tell. The wind has started to change around a little bit. This is a very
This is a tool you'll see a lot
but
of hunters use, mostly bow hunters, but rifle hunters use it too. It gives you a definitive view on what the wind is doing right then, right there. I think they put talcum powder in a little squeeze bottle and shake it up and fire some through.
It should be about 10:30, and we will start down and put the whack on them.
Creates a little cloud, and it just, whatever way it drifts, that's which way the wind's
See
blowing.
the bull you're gonna shoot?
And the bull is on the right. You'll see his, as he's feeding on the upper right corner, you'll see the tips of his horns in the sunlight.
They're just feeding up out of that draw. And now we finally spotted the bull. This is not the same bull we saw yesterday. This is a really nice 6-point. It's about 9 o'clock, and the elk have bedded down. And I think the wind is getting good for us. Wind's getting pretty good, it's stabling out. It's going to take us about a half an hour to get in position. But we're going to back out of here. We're going to go up around the top of this ridge, drop down to the bottom of this draw over here. Hey, if we can get to within 100 yards of this bull, we're going to get elk.
Okay, so we think the time is right, the wind's where we need it to be. Now we're going to start sweeping around. We're going to descend on them. Now we're not going to go to right where we think they are. We're going to do it in segments. We're going to cut the distance. We're going to use all of our senses to make sure that we're not going to alert them in the process of closing on them.
By a quarter of a mile. He's bedded down there. You can just make out his head laying in the sagebrush or sticking out of the sagebrush. We're going to come down here to the bottom of this draw. The wind is perfect.
And there you hear some
Situation
breakup
right.
from that mic.
We're going to get Chriselle and elk.
Nice shot of the sagebrush.
We're about 500 yards out. End of those rims come down about 100 yards. About 100 yards past that. On about the same elevation.
Now at this point, as a rifle elk hunter who's been successful a few times, as I'm filming Bob, and no offense to Bob, but he's telling me all these things that are going to happen, and I'm thinking, there's no way that's going to happen. And everything he said went down pretty much the way he said it would. It was pretty amazing. I was drinking the Kool-Aid because I was along for the ride, but you're going to see here in a sec that the guy knows what he's doing.
We're going to cow call to him at that point. He's much more likely to come down to breed with a cow or down to fight. So, hey, elk hunting, 90% luck, 10% skill. When we get in there, we just can't screw it up.
Okay, now that's where you're going to see an issue, and something me and him talked about. We'll get to here as it
Here's the
happens.
drill. We're about 150 yards out. We're hoping this is going to work because Rochelle's set up just to the left of me about 10.
Now Bob's going to set his girlfriend up here for the shot, and he's going to get behind her where he thinks the elk are going to come from and start calling so that it really should get her a close shot. The downside of this is, if you heard earlier, Chriselle shot an elk with a rifle last year, and this is her first time bow hunting. And Bob wanted her to have the opportunity, which I do not fault him for. We're kind of joking here, but Bob's a really good shot, and he's killed a lot of elk with his bow. And I think, having the camera there may have been a better call for him to take the first shot at least. But, c'est la vie, we had a great time, and you're about to see some incredible footage of a nice big bull elk.
Slip around the edge of this ridge. We should be within 70, 80 yards of them by the time we stop. We thought we heard some rocks rolling back there. And I'd hate to think that herd pulled out on us. it could just be those cows milling around.
Hearing rocks when you're elk hunting is a good sign that they accelerated. Something spooked them and they started running, and then they don't really care about the noise they're making. But we get lucky this time, and he's right. It was just one of them lazily kicked a rock over, because here comes the bull. And this blew me away, and I am sitting here on my knees in the tall grass. I'm only hiding behind the tripod and the little camera that's on it.
You can kind of sit down. He's coming in. He's got coming down below us. There you go.
And Bob's trying to get her in prime shooting position.
Be up on your back knee.
This, I'm telling you, this, I was aghast. This blew me completely away. I did not expect this. I did not expect. I'm not zoomed in very much right now, but this thing gets within about, I don't know, 75 feet of me, and it was just an amazing sight. And I'm sitting here on my knees in grass out in the open with a camouflage t-shirt on, hiding behind basically this small camera that's smaller than a football.
But he'll do. He's out of probably about 7.
And this is the grueling part for, I think, for every elk hunter, is he's there, but he's not yet in range. I think Bob says he's around 90 yards or something. And I think they want him at 30 or 40, or even closer. He said that was yucky because the clicking sound that is, I think, one of his calls made when he was opening the top.
He's coming in nice and slow and easy. Nice and slow and easy.
It just still amazes me to this day what a beautiful scene.
He totally thinks there's a hot cow up here.
And I've been sitting here for just minutes on the ground, on my knees, unable to move. I'm starting to get sore. And so it takes, I think I had this guy on film for about 15 or 20 minutes before the shot attempt. So I cut a little bit of it out, but here I throw in another little Dokken zinger for Bob.
At about 60 yards. Coming in.
Playing with a different transition there to just kind of show a little passage of time, because nobody wants, as much as we like seeing this, when you're watching a show like this, you don't want to see 20 minutes of an elk walking 30 feet, but it's pretty cool stuff. He still has no idea there's humans there. He's wondering. He heard the chirping. He's wondering where that cow is, because it's time to breed. You really wonder what decision-making processes go through their brains. Now, he's not running away from us, but because he hasn't seen anything, and Bob hasn't, and there he chirps to try to get his attention again. But he was starting to walk away. And here comes the infamous pink arrow. Now that arrow hit about 8 feet in front of the bull on the ground and just bounced up in the air. And obviously not a very good shot. Bob got one off at him at a little bit more range than he likes, but you got to take a shot while you got it. Missed again. And pretty much the jig is up. He's been shot at. It's nice to hear him chirp back a little bit. And Bob finally comes to the realization that we had the 99.9%, but not
Rochelle,
not that last tenth.
what happened?
I missed.
So here's what happened in summation. We spotted these elk early this morning. We snuck up and around. We put in the time. We put in the miles. We got up on top of them. We called, and holy mackerel, it worked.
That's what I was thinking too. I could not believe that opportunity came. And not, it's not really Chriselle's fault. This is her first time ever shooting a bow at an animal,
And today we screwed up.
and had just started shooting, I think, this last spring. So
When did we start practicing shooting this year?
In February, I went over and got this bow set up for me instead of my dad. And then we started in
We've been
March, April. We started in March because we went to Oakland in April.
and me, I actually shot at that elk too. I'm a little ashamed to admit that, but I shot him for 55, 60 yards. Is what I thought he was, but he's actually turned out to be about 40 when I shot.
And so it's a tough thing for bow hunters when they're shooting to get the right range. And if you know you're going to be there and you got plenty of time, one thing you can do is pick different trees, range them, or rock, or some sort of structure, and try to remember it so that when they come in, you can use that as a gauge. But yeah, I don't think the elk was 200 yards from us while we were filming this wrap up on the hillside.
To let him go.
But Bob did a great job telling the story as we went along. It was a really fun trip. Got to see the snake, got to see all the elk.
We hold off, come back tomorrow, and see if we can't do it again. Right up till the end.
They still got a couple weeks of elk season. I gotta head back home and go to work. But I think I got what I needed to see
I'm
here.
glad mine go fast enough.
I think we put a pretty good show together.
I know it. Well, better than a bad miss
True story.
or a bad hit.
Right. You're absolutely right. If you can see that arrow not hit body, that's a good miss.
So
Bad miss is when it hits the
show's about over. Another Dokken tune called "Just Got Lucky." I figured that was suited for the elk because he did get lucky. And then my signature credit roll where I list each of the participants once and then me and the 27,000 positions that I play. Little humor. Ha ha. And then we come to the end thing, and then that pretty much makes it the end. Thanks for watching.